Of late, I've been really fascinated by The Long Dark. I've been getting into it a little more recently, and I have to say there's a lot of stuff about this game that I think works really well that a lot of games don't get right nowadays. But I'm not going to ramble much more. I want to get into some of the things I really like about this game. If you feel like I deserve it by the end of the video, please like, subscribe, and share it with all your friends. It would help a lot. The atmosphere in this game is out of this world. It truly feels like you are going from a blizzard to a quiet interior with just violent winds outside. The sound design of this game even makes looting feel, well, pretty nice. The sounds are crisp, everything sounds pretty different, and you really feel like you're digging through some house in an apocalyptic frozen world. I don't think it would be a stretch to say that the sound design of this game actually carries a lot of like the feel of the game. If there is even a little less effort, you would feel it and you would notice it, and this game would suffer greatly. Being inside during a blizzard while you're lighting a fire is just so satisfying and cozy. Even cooking food to warm up a little bit from the cold weather outside also just sounds really, really nice. And if you listen, you can hear when your food's finna be done. Floorboards ache. You can hear your gear rustling in your bag. You can even occasionally hear the house shift as it tries not to fall over from the pressure of just the constant wind outside. While outside, you can hear crows, your footsteps in the snow, the wind just rushing by you, slowly ticking down your temperature. Outside, you can even hear each structure just trying to keep itself up just a little bit longer. And sometimes when you need a break from the harsh winds outside, you can get into a vehicle.
I could use this.
Despite the horrid situation that you're having to deal with, this can all lead to the game feeling very relaxing, almost disarmingly so. The game will not waste its time though when it comes to reminding you of where you are exactly. The wolves are terrifying, and up to this point in the game, they're probably the loudest thing you've heard. It should be no surprise that the only tool to really defend yourself is going to be even louder. Despite that, the most frightening noise of them all is when the winds outside are howling, even louder than the wolves do. The Long Dark truly is a game that lives and dies through its sound and through the atmosphere created through that sound, though the visuals aren't lacking either. The blizzard's not only deafening, but it's blinding. You can't see farther than like a few feet in front of you, even with a lantern or a light of any kind. The visuals and the sound often come together to create certain moods for the game as well. the flickering of lights long dead due to an aurora in the sky, bringing them back to life. The beautiful aurora outside and the droning ambience, the lights flickering everywhere. It's almost as if the life that once inhabited this town has come back. Once the aurora ends, you find yourself even more unnerved by the quiet that comes after. The Long Dark isn't really trying to be a horror game, but it is probably one of the scariest games I have ever played and one of the most unnerving. The calming fire, just contrasted by the pitch black all around it, due to the lack of electricity running through the wires. You can't really see much further than where the fire extends, and it sometimes has you wondering if you're really alone in the house you're staying at. Though, the fear isn't only just from the darkness. When the light comes back, it's just there to remind you that you're all alone. The snow during the daytime is blinding, almost the polar opposite of sitting by the fire at night. Sure, you can see again, but does it really help? A majority of the places you'll be going through in this game are ghost towns, are places that once were inhabited by a lot of people. You can see, but you can also see their absence. Whenever you do find someone though, they're already just an example of what you might become. Save for the animals, you are truly alone, and no one is coming here to rescue you.
Hope nobody needs this anymore.
In the Long Dark, you are primarily worried about 4 stats. Well, 5 if you include your health too. Your temperature is probably the most important need in the game. Where in most games, your clothes will just be cosmetic, in this game, they can mean the difference between freezing to death and being able to go through most rough weather without any problems. It helps to make that cozy fire just a little more comforting considering it's keeping you alive. And it of course helps the blizzards be even scarier because you know it can lead to a quick death if you don't get to shelter quickly. The most important feature of temperature though is to balance out the other ones. You can find a lot of food indoors, but eventually, if you aren't really exploring a whole lot, you're going to run out. You're going to have to risk having your temperature hit really low numbers in order to just get a little bit of food so you can survive just a bit longer. It really helps to create this tense, need to move quickly while also trying to be thorough when you're looking. If you manage to find a random animal carcass or kill one yourself, you'll then have to set up a campfire nearby so you don't freeze to death while you're harvesting their meat, their hide, or whatever else you need from them. In any other environment, this would be way easier because you wouldn't have to worry about freezing to death at the same time as starving to death. Unfortunately for your temperature though, the fire also has a hunger bar, and depending on what you feed it, it'll be hotter or cooler. You can survive even the harshest climates outside as long as you're not exposed to the wind and your fire is fed properly. Unfortunately though, in order to find fuel, most of the time you'll have to leave its warmth. To add on to it, even once your fire is ready, you're warm enough and you can start carving up your animal, you're going to need tools to even do it, and it will take some time and burn calories that you might not even be able to spend. Sleep is also very important for you because if you lose out on it, you will become less effective, you can't carry as much, and overall you're going to suffer everywhere else in general. You can't really sleep outside when there's a blizzard unless you have a proper fire built and you're shielded from the wind. And of course, if you have a bedroll near you, in which case you'll be able to sleep outside. But 90% of the time, you want to be able to go inside and just sleep in a bed that's fully insulated from the weather outside. Though there are going to be many times where you're outside, it's too cold for you to put down a bedroll, you don't have any fuel for a fire, so you're just going to have to ignore being sleep deprived. I don't really have as much to say about water, because that's probably one of the easier things to solve. It just requires a fire, and if you can get a hold of some snow, you can melt some snow and get some free water. But it's another factor in the equation that comes to, well, you surviving, because it could also lead to your death if you're somehow not prepared. The game has a crafting system, but ultimately a lot of it requires a lot of time and investment. Making armor requires you to have a knife. You need to let the leather and anything else that you have, you need to let it be cured indoors for several days. Even the most fundamental mechanic of the game isn't really that simple. You need several different things to start a fire, and you're not even guaranteed to start the fire most of the time. Each second there's just a chance it won't work, and it's even more punishing when you're out in a blizzard and you really need it to not die. The map is really big, and you'll need to carry a spray can to mark down which places you've explored. Since guns and ammo are scarce, more often than not you're going to depend on flares to keep wolves away from you. Everything is in balance to make your life as hard as possible, but at the same time, just enough to be manageable. The Lone Dark doesn't really have any end goals other than to make it to the next day and then make it to the day after that. The end of the game is basically you not being able to survive any longer or making a mistake. The beauty in the game, though, is that the mistakes will help you survive longer the next time around, and eventually you'll be able to beat your previous record. Your first run you might survive for only 2 days and get mauled to death by a wolf. Your second run, you pull a flare out and turn that on to scare the wolf away, but then you die from the cold. Your third run, you keep plenty of fuel on you, you have a torch to scare the wolves away, and you use it to start a fire, thus surviving a little bit longer than the previous 2 attempts. Almost everything in the game is a consequence of your own actions. Of course, there are going to be times where you can't find the right tools that you need, or you just happen to get caught outside by a bear. There will be times where you can't really control what happens to you, but that's real life. You can't always control the things that are going to happen. Now, if your question is would I recommend this game, I would, but you gotta keep in mind that it is a certain genre of game that isn't really accessible for a lot of people. It is a very difficult game. If you aren't willing to learn from your mistakes, then you should probably look elsewhere for a survival experience. To sum up everything I've said, the atmosphere and the gameplay balance that constantly keeps you on edge is really good. And it's done really well, and it's unlike any other game that I've played, including other survival games that I really like that are challenging. I don't really have much more to say about this game. I've said everything that I felt was the reason I like it personally. There's more stuff that is really good about this game. Like, there's roguelite elements where you can unlock things that you can start with in the next round. Like, for example, if you start 1,000 fires, you can start with level 3 fire starting on like your next run, but that's besides the point. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts.